Howdy neighbors, beautiful day in the mid-state region here. I'm with my buddy Chad Andrew Harris, and he lives here in town, leads the Charlotte Bluegrass All-Stars, has also done some collaborating with Razzle Dazzle 2 Tree, which you might want to check out. And we have a cool video for you here today on jam etiquette, and it's broken down into 3 chapters, and let's just go ahead and plow on into it.
Investigating a jam. This is something I like to do, and I've found that it's received well when joining a jam or wanting to join a jam. I like to observe the jam and kind of listen to a song or two before joining in. This does a few things. One, I'm aware of the strong points in the jam. I'm aware of who are the stronger players or the weaker players, or who's advanced, and what I potentially could add to the jam to serve it, or if they're really just on top of it. Sometimes it's better not to join or just to watch and learn. Instrumentation is an important thing. If they've got 5 mandolin players and you're a mandolin player, it might not be the best jam to just jump in and start playing mandolin on. I like to wait till the song's done before joining and kind of ask. This is, seems like a simple thing, but just asking, hey, do you mind if I sit in for a song? Sometimes they might be in the middle of a rehearsal and you don't know, And
that can go a long way to ingratiate yourself with the group instead of just being like, oh, you think you can join any jam? And sometimes you can, but it's just nice to have some manners.
Yeah, asking to join a jam is a considerate way to establish yourself with new pickers.
You can start off strong and earn yourself a point or two by being nice that way.
Yeah, if I'm in a jam and someone asks before they join versus they just start playing, I'm definitely in a better mood with what receiving what they're adding musically.
Yeah, because you're already adding goodwill and positive energy into that first interaction, so it gets you off to a good start.
Yeah, and then as leading into, okay, let's say you're in a jam and a new guy does show up. If they're a mandolin player and you've got 4 mandolins already and you're playing mandolin, it wouldn't be a bad act of kindness to just say, hey, would you like to take my seat and play and lead a song?
A selfless act of sacrifice, and you can go to the bathroom or tie your shoe or do any of those kind of things. One small act of kindness like that can change somebody's life. So that's something you could think, I could deserve a reminding on that one myself.
Yeah, a great example this past week at the IBMAs, we had a circle with 2 banjos, and a 3rd banjo player who was really good arrived on the scene, and one of the banjo players offered, hey, would you like to play a song on my banjo? And he was, excited, and the whole jam, I think, benefited from a really good banjo player sitting in for a song versus a 3rd banjo being added to a small circle.
Exactly, and he just played the one song and graciously gave the banjo back. It was nice and clean, lots of manners.
Also, asking the newcomer, hey, do you have a song that you're familiar with and would like to lead the circle? If you're showing up to a jam, you might want to have one tune in the bag that that you can play well.
Absolutely.
And you can add to the circle versus, okay, personally, when I'm joining a jam for the first time and there's new players, if they're playing something that's really complicated, that's not what I want my first notes in the circle to be on something that's unfamiliar. So
very reasonable. A lot of times, like the break order will be established, and so say if Julie or Johnny comes in there and it's going to be another 30 or 45 minutes before the song selection comes back to her or him, you can put Julie or Johnny in there first after the song gets done and be like, hey, I know you just joined, so we'll get you in there early. That can be a nice way to extend some kindness to the newcomer.
And this is kind of a preview onto the next chapter of jam etiquette, but being aware of the type of jam that it is.
But before we do, please like and subscribe. Go ahead and hit that little bell there for the notifications, and you'll get all the good stuff from Noya Mountain Music. Thank you. And please consider becoming a patron on patreon.com/Noya Mountain Music.
Are they playing Stanley Brother tunes? Are they
gypsy jazz?
Are they doing gypsy jazz? Are they playing fiddle tunes? Is this instrumental? Are they singing a lot? Some jams have a balance, and some are more singer or more instrumental friendly.
Yeah.
So having a tune that can fit that well.
Yeah.
And
you can hardly go wrong with the old 3-chord bluegrass, Bill Monroe, Flatt and Scruggs, Stanley Brothers. that kind of thing. It's probably a better call to go at that before some obscure, Doyle Lawson tune. Subjectively, like maybe they play it all the time where you are, but that will tried and true right over the plate. The old stuff is a good first go.
There are enough classics that you could have.
Not that we don't love
the
obscure Doyle Lawson song. We do.
We do. Yeah. Also falling into the jam awareness of, observing the jam. How large is it? Is if there's more than 20 people in the jam, maybe find another jam, or watch and listen, and or maybe there's someone in that circle that's getting tired of playing, and they're like, hey, how about I'm about to leave? How about you take my spot? A lot can be achieved by just observing and standing there.
It's okay just to listen.
It's okay just to listen.
That can be the best move sometimes.
Personally, when I'm in a jam and I see someone with an instrument show up and they sit down and they listen, I'm like, yeah, he gets it. Like he's watching, he's paying attention, and he's here because he's enjoying what we're playing. Like that means more to me than anything he could be playing as someone in the jam. Yeah. All right, this is chapter 2 on the jam etiquette. This is once you're in a jam, how do you serve the jam in the best way possible? The first thing to do is, kind of be aware, is this a cluster jam or is this a circle jam? Because there's different types of jams. There's a nice, you're seated in a circle and everyone's kind of taking turns. That's what I would call a circle jam. And then you had a term that I just learned today. You called it
the cluster jam. And maybe we can hear from cousin David McLaughlin about the advantages of a cluster jam versus the circle jam.
Circle jams are not nearly as cohesive as cluster jams. When people sit in big, broad circles, 20, 30 feet apart, and there's a giant circle with nobody in the middle, the groove is never good. Nothing's cohesive. The best jams are cluster jams where the first people to arrive just get in the middle, knee to knee, right, spitting on each other and everything, breathing each other's BO and sweat and bad breath and everything. Those are the really good jams. And then the people who come in just cluster in around them. Even if you have a big jam, as long as there's no void in the middle of it, it will be way more cohesive and a tighter groove. And it has nothing to do with skill level. I'd rather play with beginners, intermediates, and advanced people, just all in a mixed cluster. And I don't know of any advanced musicians. I'm talking about, you'd never have J.D. Crowe and Tony Rice sitting in a giant circle with, celebrity type musicians. They would all insist on getting in each other's face at close range. But I think that a lot of people people will start these circle jams. They'll be close together, and then as people arrive, everybody just scoots their chairs out. Then more people arrive, they scoot their chairs out. It must have something to do with ego, or somebody thinking that if everybody's sitting on the outside of a circle, then nobody's going to get their feelings hurt or feel like they're a second-class citizen. But what they don't understand, it doesn't matter if you're sitting in the middle or on the outside of a cluster. Every zone is good. But on the outside, if you're sitting in a circle, I've never been in a circle jam that sounds good. Never.
So there can be an advantage of having a cluster jam where everybody's like standing close to each other, rather than have a huge circle where people are in like kind of different area codes, different time zones, because that can cause problems with where people are feeling the pulse. But if you're closer together and you're breathing together and you're smelling each other, there's a good chance that the timing is going to hold together better. So it can be like a polite thing for everyone to sit in a very large circle and go around like that. That can work, but a lot of times the timing is going to be better if everyone's closer together.
Yeah, so, great experience last weekend, Michael Cleveland's birthday jam.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah, Cleveland was right in the middle, and then the whole room was just filled all around him.
That's right.
Yeah, so
like
it was
the proverbial flame.
It was not a circle; it was a cluster.
Yeah,
and you had all sorts of instrumentations, around, and there was an advantage to the pulse in this situation because everyone could hear everything so close together that it sounded like one unit more so than a closed circle and sitting in chairs.
Yeah, as Wyatt remarked, it had a good bounce to it. And in that circle, I thought the best way I could serve the jam was going to stand right beside the excellent bass player, Trish, and really try to lock in with her rhythm, because the bass in those big jams is really gonna hold everything together. So I was trying to join forces with her as much as I could to help the jam stay driving, stay, locked together with the timing and all that. So that can be a thing to do when you're sussing out the jam, be like, who has the strongest rhythm, and really try to lock in with them.
And then in a circle jam, we played after that jam in a circle for a while that didn't have a bass player.
Right.
And so in a situation like that, you mentioned, finding a player in the circle that you feel like has a really strong pulse and locking into that.
Yeah.
That can be something really advantageous for a beginner who's in a circle, is to really be aware, like, where's the pulse, who's got the strongest pulse. Sometimes whoever's leading the song is going to have the pulse that is beneficial to follow, since they're leading that song as well.
And that's not always going to be someone who has the most experience. And so if that person leading the jam is a little bit wiggly woggly with their speeding up and slowing down, it can be good to go with that a little bit. And even if they mess up like the form of the song and they're singing, it's important for us as supportive, good, compassionate musicians not to be like, we're going to the G chord, you missed the G chord. You follow the lead. See where that person is in the song and try to get with them as much as you can. Help them breathe and navigate the best that they can.
Yeah, if they missed a chord and then you hear them, this happens all the time in a jam. Someone will be going into the verse and then they can't remember the line, and there's a little bit of a okay, we're all playing this one chord for an undetermined amount of time, and then all of a sudden they remember the line and they start it.
Yeah.
It's important to follow that versus someone over there is like, oh, I got a strong mandolin chop and I'm driving the song.
Yeah.
So follow me. Following the singer can be a good pulse to good default.
Good default. And then also, it's not like a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. If the person's like arrangement, if they're just like totally scattered, or maybe they've had too much chocolate, or whatever the case may be, sometimes it can be important to be like, okay, since you're really falling apart, I'm going to try to keep the structure going as much as I can, and maybe you jump in with and sing a little bit of the verse if they're taking 40 minutes to remember what they're supposed to be singing. So it's not like a one-size-all-fits thing. But generally, it's good to follow the lead of the person leading the song, whether it's an instrument or singing a song.
Yeah. All right, this is a big chapter, jam etiquette in a jam. So we're just getting started. The art of a song choice. This, we touched on this in the previous section, but you should have a song in the bag that everyone can follow easy. Is familiar, that most people have heard, especially in a circle where you've got more beginners, but everyone can benefit from just plain old Little Cabin on the Hill.
Little Cabin on the Salt Creek, I'll Fly Away, Worry Man Blues, the classics. You don't want to just jump in there and be like, all right, bluegrass in the backwoods, here we go, because it'll fall apart and be really awkward. And maybe that's a little bit of an extreme example, but try to put something over the plate, especially early on in the sesh.
Harmonies. Okay, when to sing. I guess I'll have to share this little story. So you sang Little Cabin on the Hill at this jam, and I'll throw myself under the bus. You asked me to sing tenor on it so that you could sing the lower harmony. And I realized after the first chorus that I didn't know the words like I should have.
This happens.
So during the verse,
this beautiful defoliation here in the mid-state region. This is nice. You got the Mutsa Niwa happening here. The beautiful wind.
So during the verse, I quickly grabbed my phone, I looked at the lyrics, I pulled them up, had them right on, so that I was able to, sometimes you got to look them up to serve the song, if that's what's necessary.
Although my mom would staunchly disagree with that, I think in this particular case, it was good, because he was able to, get on point there,
and that meant I had to stop playing guitar, which is another thing we'll talk about, is sometimes it's okay not to play anything.
That's right.
But harmonies. So if you're in a jam, predetermining ahead of time who's going to sing what part of the harmony, or who, you could ask someone like, hey, do you mind singing the tenor, or do you have the tenor? Do you know the tenor on this?
How's the stack going to be? Usually it's a sandwich stack with the lead in the middle, tenor above, and baritone below. Occasionally, like with the Stanley Brothers, it might be a high baritone on top, or with the Osmond Brothers, occasionally it's the high lead, but to kind of pregame, tailgate that out, just make sure everybody kind of knows what they're supposed to be doing. And that might be a good segue into, is it okay for two different people in the jam to be singing the same harmony part?
I'll let you answer that. You have more experience with that being okay or not.
It's situational, but if you're really feeling it, it's good. Just make sure you're not blasting it out over, like if someone's been singing tenor the whole time in the jam and they're like the established tenor singer, then you don't want to like be in competition with that. But if you want to sing a little tenor part or whatever, or maybe sing the tenor part low, I think it can be okay. It can even be okay to sing like a bass part or even like doubling the lead. Just make sure it's toning into the overall supportive dynamic of whoever is singing the lead, of course, and doesn't feel like it's causing, dissonance. A lot of times if it feels good, it is good, but try to like feel into that dynamic as responsibly as you can.
And there's certain songs that benefit from doubled harmonies in situational stuff. Like I've often heard Midnight Moonlight when they sing the tag of the chorus, in the midnight, in the moonlight. It can be cool to have the entire group all sing along.
Yeah, it's like the come to Jesus little moment there. That can get the good old time spirit happening.
Right.
And then also on the other side of the coin, it can be nice when there's some songs that are just a duet. It's just two voices, and it's not a trio. It can be nice to have, the trios, maybe even a solo, but not every song is going to need to have every single part on there. So if someone's like, working out a duet, they might say, hey, this is a duet, so you got to be mindful that you don't come in there with that baritone part when they don't want it to be there, in a nice way.
Yes. Okay, so directing traffic, establishing order of a break. Most of the default is whoever's singing, you kind of go in a clockwise order of left to, following your left, right. If you've got 3 guitars in a row, and then on the other side you've got 3 fiddles in a row, you could predetermine like, hey, after one guitar, let's go to the first fiddle player, and then and split them up. That's kind of a more of a higher level awareness to just predetermine that.
You don't want to have too much redundancy. You don't want to have 3 guitar breaks in a row, 3 fiddle breaks in a row. Sometimes you can split the breaks. I suppose like a double default. Sometimes you'll get in jam sessions where whoever's singing will be like banjo or like mandolin. They'll call it out and maybe they'll nod or whatever, and like Julie, Johnny, they'll call it off like that. But a lot of times, like Chad was saying, it'll be going in a circle like that. Getting into the split breaks is a little bit more challenging, and sometimes like the individual instrumentalists can be like nodding off for their second half. So you play the first half and you nod it off to a different instrument or the same instrument. And sometimes you can be like, all right, the mandolins are all going to play. If you have a huge jam, the mandolins are all going to play together, which can be a kind of cluster pluck kind of vibe. But many different things. But the 2 defaults, going in the circle, or like whoever's leading the tune is going to visually communicate who has the next break, and then the instrumentalist can figure out if they want to split break, stuff like that. Yeah,
the split break idea. This is a funny story. But at Galax this past, I guess a month ago, I was in a jam, and if you hear someone take a split break right before you, probably just take a split break after that split break. You don't, so there's a jam where I would take a half break and I'd pass it on down, and then they'd finish the whole thing, and then the next guy would do a whole thing. And at one point I yelled, what's a guy got to do to get a split break around here?
And that's using humor.
I was using humor.
Communicate.
But after that point, every single person took a split break like the rest of the evening. So, it worked. But it was funny because I had tried to take a half and, pass it on. And then no one else was taking a half. But everyone in the group was pretty pro. So I was like using humor to be like, hey, come on, guys.
And just another little thought that popped on the radar right then is that sometimes, like when you play a tune all the way through, instead of going all the way through again, or even doing split breaks, you might do like a line for line. So at the A part has, a first half, and maybe somebody takes the first part, and then you split it like 4 ways instead of just halfways. That can be a cool dynamic to add into the jam sometimes.
If you're playing a classic tune and there's 2 verses, and you've got 8 instrument breaks, there you got to split them.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
It can get a little
too long.
snoozy.
It can get a little snoozy.
Which also just makes me want to this pop up on the radar, like the tune like Brown County Breakdown. It's a breakdown, you know. And so a lot of times when everybody's playing a full break, by the end of the song, it'll be like because sometimes when people get too much in the chocolate cup, they'll get a little sluggish and draggy. If you listen to that original recording, things were splitting up nicely. It wasn't like the banjo takes the full break, mandolin takes the full break, the fiddles take the full break all the day long. Although I think that you may have built it. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that number one, you got to keep the breakdowns peppy. You got to drive, and then we'll get into this more in a little bit, but you got to keep the breakdowns peppy, make sure you're driving the rhythm. And then you also don't need to have everybody play every single part every single time. You can pass it off. It's cool.
And we didn't talk about this, but twin breaks. And especially that particular breakdown. I've heard a lot of jams in which the mandolin player and the fiddle decided to play a twin break and play at the same time.
Preordained.
But that's a cool way, especially for a breakdown. You know, if you're moving.
Yeah.
You know, and if you've got more than one fiddle player, play both of, you know, and you've got good fiddle players that aren't going to throw each other off. It's not a bad idea to twin break. And fiddle players that are great love doing this. Because that means they can play a harmony over another player.
That's right.
Sometimes
and
you get three going.
And the tune doesn't end up being 10 or 12 minutes. It can just be like nice, 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes, and go on to the next one.
Okay, we're in the middle of our jam etiquette chapter.
Doing good.
And we're going into the volume.
And very
this
important
is
subject.
a very important subject. So if I'm a banjo player, or I have a fiddle, so, you know, if there's a mandolin player next to me and she's playing like a nice soft mandolin solo, and I'm right next to her and I'm going, that's not serving her or the jam.
Right.
So being aware of your volume, you know, I notice a lot of fiddle players, especially if there's a mandolin next to them playing, they'll just be going with their thumb. You know?
You gotta be really tuned in to what the lead is.
Or you can play nothing.
You can play nothing. It's a wonderful thing. That's something I learned from Hoot Hester in Nashville. He was the staff Opry fiddler. And he would play his break and then just sit there with his fiddle on his lap, pleasantly enjoying what's going on there. And so we also have to remember that our ears are up here and they're hearing the stuff that's on this plane, and then our instrument is out here and it's a lot louder down here than it is up here, especially if you have a loud instrument. You know, if your mandolin's loud, or if your banjo's loud, a lot of times you're not going to be as aware of how much sound is coming out down here versus what is coming up. So you can just be blasting people out of their minds and not being able to hear the nice music that's happening right next to you, especially if you're not paying attention. So because we didn't want to make this video too long, we're making it into 2 parts. So thus concluded part 1. Please like the video, subscribe, check out the Patreon, patreon.com/StoneyMountainMusic, and we'll catch you on part 2. All right, adios for now.
A good rule of thumb, if you can't hear the person who's taking a break, if you can't hear their break, then you're too loud.